So, you want to be spiritual, huh? I don't know why the title of this made me laugh a lot, but I think when that desire comes about, usually it means something stopped working. And not in a dramatic movie kind of way, more like old explanations that we used to rely on stopped landing. The advice sounded rehearsed. The goals felt oddly hollow once you reached them, and silence started feeling louder than noise. From my experience, that's often how spirituality shows up. It's not really an upgrade, more like a crack. And once that crack appears, things move fast. Suddenly there are books, videos, podcasts, frameworks, diagrams, people speaking very calmly while saying very big things. And we start collecting ideas the way people collect furniture for a house they haven't moved into yet. And it does feel good. There's relief in the language, comfort in having a name for what you're feeling. There's even momentum in the sense that you're on a path. At some point, though, spirituality can start behaving like a toolkit. An experience happens, and immediately it gets filed somewhere. A feeling comes up, and it gets interrupted. A painful memory surfaces, and it gets assigned a cosmic reason. Trauma kind of becomes a lesson you agreed to ahead of time. Confusion becomes a sign that you're resisting growth. And usually if the vocabulary gets expansive enough, maybe you're not even from here. Hello to all my starseeds. Which honestly would explain a lot. None of this comes from bad intentions. It seems like most of it comes from people trying to make sense of intense inner experiences with the only tools available. Language, stories, metaphors, and I guess now AI. I think there is something subtle that happens when spirituality turns into something you apply instead of something you enter. Experience starts arriving already explained. And when that happens, the actual encounter gets shorter and shorter. I think at its core, whatever its core is, spirituality has this disruptive nature. It unsettles assumptions, it rearranges our priorities, and it introduces uncertainty where confidence used to be. It doesn't seem to move in straight lines or be the kind of thing that waits for permission. That's why a lot of the time it feels life-changing without necessarily being tidy. Consuming spiritual information can feel satisfying in the way organizing files feels satisfying. Everything has a place, everything makes sense, and you finally feel informed. Meanwhile, your inner life is still sitting there, unchanged, wondering when it gets invited into the conversation. I think that gap is really important and matters more than most people think. Because the shift we're all craving doesn't actually come from knowing more about consciousness. I think it comes from encountering your own. And that's where I think method starts to matter a lot. So many spiritual practices come bundled with imagery, belief systems, and expectations. By the time something happens internally, it already knows how it's supposed to be described. The experience you're having fits the story neatly. And it is very comforting, but it can also be limiting. For me, the cleanest entry point, the least contaminated way to explore consciousness has always been breathwork with your eyes closed. I know it's not the most impressive, and And it's not because it comes with visions or titles, but I feel like it's a method that refuses to perform. When your eyes are closed, the external world quiets down on its own. When your breath becomes deliberate, your nervous system responds immediately. When you stay with it, attention turns inward without needing instructions or priming. There are no symbols required, no mythology necessary, and there's no identity update loading in the background. There's just sensation, thought, emotion, resistance, calm, boredom, memory, whatever weird old friend shows up that day. I don't think breathwork tells you what any of it means, but it introduces you to what's already happening. And that's probably why I trust it so much. You'll start noticing how your body carries tension. You feel how thoughts rise and fall without commentary. And you meet silence that isn't empty, it's just something new. And slowly but surely, important things start shifting. Meaning stops being outsourced. Spirituality becomes an experience rather than a theory, personal rather than performative, and the most important to me, grounded rather than cosmic. Of course, books still have a place. Traditions still matter. Language is super helpful, and stories can help flesh out the experience. I think they work best as companions, though, not really substitutes. For my clients and I, it seems like breathwork keeps things honest. Your nervous system doesn't respond to metaphors, and your body doesn't care about your worldview. It responds to rhythm, oxygen, safety, and attention. And when your eyes are closed, there's no audience. I think that detail changes everything. Without an audience, experience seems to not need to impress so much. It doesn't need to align with an identity. It doesn't need to prove spiritual progress. It just unfolds. If you're at the beginning of a spiritual path, or circling one again, my suggestion right now is simple. Start with your own breath. Please. Start with your own body. Pretty please. Start with your own attention. Pretty please. Sit somewhere quiet. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly and deliberately. And let whatever appears appear. You don't need to interpret it, and you don't have to form a conclusion. Meaning can show up later. It usually does, eventually. More than often, completely sideways or upside down. Spirituality doesn't begin with some Gnostic awareness and becoming something new. It begins with noticing what you already are, what was present before explanations arrived. And if things ever start feeling overly abstract, overly cosmic, or strangely disconnected from your actual life, just return to the simplest thing in the room. Your breath has been here the whole time. It's been with you since you were born. It doesn't exaggerate, it doesn't theorize, and it doesn't lie, which I think makes it a surprisingly good place to start. So yeah, try taking a deep breath with your eyes shut, and then do it again and again and again, and see what happens.